the night America almost lost everything. At 2:17 a.m. on September 26, 1983, the fate of the United States, and possibly the entire world, rested on the decision of one exhausted man sitting in a dimly lit Soviet bunker, staring at a flashing red screen that screamed, "Nuclear attack detected." If he followed protocol, he would report the alert, and within minutes, intercontinental ballistic missiles would launch toward American cities: New York, Washington, Chicago, Los Angeles. But he did not. And because of that single decision, America woke up the next morning, unaware that it had almost vanished overnight. This is not fiction. This is real history. And it begins decades earlier in the deepest fear of the Cold War. A world divided by fear. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as two superpowers, locked in a rivalry that shaped every aspect of global politics, military strategy, science, and even culture. America represented capitalism and democracy. The Soviet Union represented communism and centralized power. Both sides believed the other was an existential threat. By the 1950s, both nations had built hydrogen bombs capable of destroying entire cities in seconds. By the 1960s, they had missiles that could reach across continents in less than 30 minutes. This created a terrifying concept known as mutually assured destruction, MAD. If one side launched nuclear weapons, the other would respond, and both would be destroyed. Peace was not based on trust, it was based on fear, and fear makes people dangerous. The United States builds a nuclear shield. To protect itself, the United States developed early warning systems to detect incoming Soviet missiles. Radar stations were placed across North America. Satellites were launched into space to monitor missile launches from Soviet territory. The goal was simple: detect an attack early, respond instantly. Because in nuclear war, hesitation meant death. American leaders believed they needed at least 15 to 20 minutes of warning to authorize a counterstrike. The Soviets thought the same. So both sides built machines to decide the fate of humanity. And machines make mistakes. 1983. The most dangerous year of the Cold War. By 1983, relations between the U.S. and the Soviet Union were worse than they had been in decades. President Ronald Reagan had recently called the Soviet Union an evil empire. The U.S. had deployed new nuclear missiles in Europe, capable of reaching Moscow faster than older weapons. The Soviets believed America might be planning a surprise first strike. They were paranoid. They were watching every radar signal, every satellite image, every military exercise. Then, on September 1, 1983, something happened that pushed tensions even further. A Korean Airlines passenger plane, Flight 007, accidentally flew into Soviet airspace. The Soviets, believing it was an American spy plane, shot it down. All 269 people aboard were killed, including American citizens. The world was furious. America accused the Soviet Union of murder. The Soviets accused America of provocation. Both sides prepared for the worst. And 3 weeks later, the machines began to lie. The man who disobeyed the system. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was on duty at the Serpukhov 15 bunker near Moscow, responsible for monitoring the Soviet Union's new satellite-based missile detection system. His job was to watch screens and report any sign of an American nuclear launch. At 12:14 a.m., alarms went off. A satellite detected what appeared to be a missile launch from the United States. Then another, then another, then another. The system reported 5 incoming U.S. nuclear missiles. Protocol demanded that Petrov immediately notify his superiors, who would inform Soviet leadership, who would likely authorize a massive nuclear counterstrike. But Petrov hesitated. Something felt wrong. If America were launching a nuclear war, would they send only 5 missiles? Why not hundreds? Why not everything? Petrov remembered that the satellite system was new and untested. He suspected a malfunction, so he made a decision that could have ended his career or his life. He reported the alarm as a false alert. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. No missiles arrived. The system had mistaken sunlight reflecting off clouds for missile launches. One man's doubt prevented nuclear war. America never knew how close it had come to annihilation, and neither did most of the world. For years, the incident was classified. History almost ended in silence. But that was not the only time. The United States itself nearly started nuclear war by accident. In 1979, a training tape simulating a Soviet attack was accidentally loaded into NORAD's live computer system. U.S. commanders were told that hundreds of Soviet missiles were inbound. Fighter jets were scrambled, missile crews prepared for launch. Only when radar stations showed nothing in the sky did officials realize it was a mistake. Another time, in 1980, a faulty computer chip caused warning systems to display incoming missile attacks repeatedly. Each time, America came minutes from launching retaliation. The Cold War was not just about politics, it was about fragile machines, human exhaustion, and fear-driven decisions. And while governments played chess, ordinary Americans went to sleep every night, unaware that their cities were targets. The towns built for the end of the world. Across the United States, missile silos were hidden beneath farmland in states like Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Farmers lived above nuclear weapons powerful enough to destroy entire regions. Each silo held Minuteman missiles, capable of reaching the Soviet Union in half an hour. In case of war, these areas would be among the first Soviet targets. People raised children, built schools, and celebrated birthdays over doomsday machines. In Nevada, nuclear tests shook desert towns, sending radioactive dust across American communities. Children played outside as invisible fallout drifted through the air. Some developed cancer years later, but at the time, the government said nothing. National security came before human lives. The Cuban Missile Crisis, when America faced death directly. In October 1962, American spy planes discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being installed in Cuba, only 90 miles from Florida. President John F. Kennedy was told that once operational, these missiles could strike Washington, D.C. in minutes. America went into panic mode. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade of Cuba. Soviet ships carrying missile parts were headed toward the island. If U.S. forces fired on those ships, war could start instantly. For 13 days, the world waited. American families watched the news every night, fearing it might be the last time. Schools practiced nuclear drills. People built fallout shelters in their backyards. Then something happened that almost no one knew at the time. A U.S. Navy destroyer dropped practice depth charges near a Soviet submarine, trying to force it to surface. The submarine captain, believing war had already started, prepared to fire a nuclear torpedo at the American fleet. Only one officer on board, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to approve the launch. Without unanimous consent, the missile could not be fired. Once again, one man prevented catastrophe. History often depends on quiet heroes. The lies that shaped American fear. During the Cold War, Americans were told that nuclear war was survivable. Government films showed families calmly sitting in shelters while cheerful music played. Schools taught children to duck and cover under desks, as if wooden furniture could stop nuclear firestorms. In reality, experts knew that modern nuclear war would kill tens of millions instantly and collapse society completely. But admitting that would create panic, so leaders chose optimism over honesty. Entire generations grew up practicing drills for an apocalypse that politicians secretly knew could not be survived. When the Cold War finally ended, but the weapons did not. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Americans celebrated the end of the Cold War, but nuclear weapons did not disappear. Thousands remain active today, many still on hair-trigger alert. Accidental launches are still possible. Cyber attacks are now a new threat. Modern systems are more complex, but complexity creates new types of failure. The danger never fully went away. It only became quieter. Why this story still matters to America. Most Americans today were born after the Cold War. They think of nuclear war as something from old movies and history books. But the same systems still exist. The same missiles still sit underground. And the same reality remains. Decisions made in minutes could end millions of lives. What saved America in 1962 and 1983 was not technology, it was human judgment. People who questioned orders, people who doubted machines, people who chose caution when fear demanded action. History is not just written by presidents and generals. Sometimes it is written by tired officers in dark rooms, choosing not to press a button. The terrifying truth. America did not survive the Cold War because leaders were wise. It survived because disasters were avoided by chance, mistakes, and brave individuals who disobeyed orders. Nuclear peace was never guaranteed. It was borrowed, and it can be lost again. The greatest threat to the United States was never invasion. It was misunderstanding, and misunderstanding almost erased everything.